What if Hamilton's failure at Ferrari was not his fault, but rather an internal betrayal? What if I told you that an engineer has uncovered a truth that Ferrari tried to hide all season? Today I tell you the biggest scandal that Maranello has experienced in recent years, and what it could mean for the future of Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari did not expect to close its 2025 season in the middle of a technical and political earthquake. While other teams were celebrating or analyzing data calmly in the Abu Dhabi paddock, a storm was ignited in Maranello that not even the most sensational media could have anticipated. It all started with a confession. A simple phrase said by one of the most veteran engineers around, Lewis Hamilton. But what seemed like an internal technical comment quickly became the spearhead of a scandal of historic dimensions. The sentence was clear and devastating. The SF-25 had a structural defect from the wind tunnel. We never had a real correlation. This statement was not made to the press or in an interview. It arose in a hallway conversation, according to several sources, and was quickly leaked to technical forums and journalists with privileged access. The impact was immediate. What many had suspected but no one at Ferrari had dared to admit publicly was confirmed. The problem wasn't the driver, it was the car. The radios during the season showed it. At critical moments, Adami's voice sounded neutral, distant. Sometimes he was late. Sometimes it just didn't come. In situations of strategy change, where speed and decision-making was needed, the communication channel became slow, bureaucratic, and confusing. In the middle of the race, with degraded tires or with rain on the way, Hamilton asked for clarity and did not get it. Not because Adami didn't know, but because the link didn't exist. Internal sources speak of passive resistance, an attitude in which Adami, without openly confronting Hamilton, limited himself to complying with the minimum. I didn't challenge him, I didn't correct him, but I didn't actively support him either. And in Formula 1, where the driver-engineer relationship can be the difference between a victory and a retirement, that indifference is a silent poison. The problem was not technical, it was human, and he was political. Hamilton, aware of the tension, tried to rebuild the bond. He requested one-on-one meetings with Adami. He asked for joint simulator sessions. There were even attempts at informal rapprochement off the track. But each effort hit the same barrier. Adami was not willing to give up his emotional ground. For him, Hamilton was not his driver. He was a figure imposed from above, a media superstar who altered the traditional balance of the team. And that, for someone like Adami, was unforgivable. This generated an unbreathable climate inside Ferrari's box number 2. The mechanics noticed it. The strategists commented on it in low voices. While Leclerc and his engineer operated as a synchronized machine, Hamilton's environment seemed fragmented, with slow decisions and no initiative. This affected not only performance on the track but public perception. In several races, such as in Japan and Brazil, Hamilton's strategy seemed directly inferior, and that was no coincidence. The most painful thing for the team was that this was not an open conflict. Nobody was shouting. There were no discussions in front of cameras. It was something much worse, an undeclared emotional divorce, a shared unwillingness to build a functional relationship. A kind of subtle sabotage, without words, where each silence weighed like a stone on the competitiveness of one of the most successful pilots in history. In Maranello they know it. Vasseur knows it, and he is managing it with tweezers. Because removing Riccardo Adami is not just changing an engineer. It is touching a piece of Ferrari's political ecosystem. But after this year, it no longer seems like an option. It's a necessity. If Ferrari wants to maximize the Hamilton project, it must break with its most toxic heritage. And that means ending this relationship that never got off on the right foot. All this silence, all this contained tension, has been nothing more than a self-imposed obstacle. An internal break that not even the best car could compensate for. Because in Formula 1, time is not only wasted on the track. It is also lost when two people who should work as one, walk in opposite directions. What at first seemed like an isolated technical problem, an aerodynamic correlation failure, a tense relationship between engineer and driver has turned into something much deeper. A crisis of credibility that threatens to fracture Ferrari from its foundations. Because what has come to light after the Abu Dhabi tests is not only a design defect, but the tangible demonstration that Ferrari has lost control of its internal narrative, its decision structure, and worse still, its ability to listen to its own talent. The technical leadership has promised a complete rethinking of the SF-26. According to internal sources, a change in the architecture of the car's floor is being considered, a complete redesign of the diffuser, and most importantly, an improvement in the simulation systems and the correlation of track model data. It is no longer enough to have power. The 2026 car will have to work from lap 1, in all conditions on all circuits. And that requires a precision that Ferrari has proven not to have even under pressure. Internally, the movements have already begun. There is talk of the arrival of new engineers from Mercedes and Aston Martin, a total restructuring of the simulator team, and even a change in the hierarchy of the strategy team. But all those changes, no matter how ambitious they sound, will only make sense if they convince Hamilton that something really different is happening. Because the truth is that Lewis is not emotionally tied to Ferrari. His arrival was a gamble. A romantic narrative of coming full circle with the most legendary team in history. But if that story turns into a new chapter of frustration, you have options on the table. Mercedes, still without a consolidated leader after its gradual withdrawal of Toto Wolff, continues to consider Hamilton as a figure capable of rebuilding its identity. Aston Martin, with a solid expanding project, is interested in a strong name that will increase its credibility and track record. Even Red Bull, in a hypothetical post-Verstappen scenario, could propose a radical move. But the most delicate thing is the message that this first year leaves. If not even Hamilton could get the best out of Ferrari, who could? And that, beyond the numbers or results, is what can mark a decade. Because it's not just about losing a pilot. It is about losing the last argument that sustained the faith of the tifosi, of the sponsors, of the entire paddock. If Ferrari can't keep Hamilton, then who can it keep? And there is still another dimension that complicates everything: political pressure. Several key Ferrari sponsors came in with Hamilton's arrival. Not only because it represents results, but because it represents a global brand, a media influence that no other driver in the current paddock can replicate. Losing him is not simply a sporting loss. It is a hemorrhage of influence, of commercial credibility, of institutional weight. In the coming months, Ferrari will face a double challenge. On the track, he will have to design the best car he has made in a decade. And off the track, he will have to convince Hamilton with facts, not promises that he is worth staying. Everything will be played out in the 2026 preseason tests. And if the SF26 does not demonstrate from the first kilometer that the change is real, then what began as an epic story between two legends may end as one of the most costly failures of the modern era. So what's next for Hamilton and Ferrari? A silent countdown is coming. A clock that has already started ticking. And when it stops, what they decide could redefine the prancing horse's future, or seal its final downfall. The silence has been broken. It is no longer speculation, nor rumors floating around the paddock. What happened at Ferrari during the 2025 season is documented, confessed, and now exposed. What seemed like a simple adaptation curve for Hamilton has turned out to be the symptom of a deeper structural collapse. A failed car, an internal culture that resists change, and a technician-driver relationship that should never have existed. And now that we know, the story changes. This is no longer just the story of a champion struggling to adapt to a new team. It is the story of a century-old structure that faces its most critical moment in the modern era. The story of a driver who, at 40 years old, is still capable of feeling the car more than an entire room of engineers. And above all, it is the story of a truth that was ignored, until it was too big to remain hidden. And this is where you come in. Do you think Hamilton should continue at Ferrari, even knowing that part of the team did not believe in him when he needed it most? Do you think there is still time to rebuild that relationship and transform frustration into victory? Or do you consider that the time has come to look for a new destination, one where talent is not questioned, but rather enhanced? Your opinion is not just another comment. He is an active part of this community. And if you've come this far, it's because you care about this story as much as we do. So hit the comments section and tell me what you think. What would you do if you were Lewis Hamilton today? And if this type of analysis interests you, if you value a deeper look at what really happens within the world of Formula One beyond what is said in press conferences, then this channel is for you. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and get ready, because what's coming in the coming weeks will be unlike anything we've experienced before. Ferrari can no longer hide. The 2026 season will be his final trial, and we will be here to tell it, turn by turn. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.